All right, we are recording.
All right. Well,
Yes.
I'm J.W. Myers.
I'm Karl Brubaker.
And welcome to the Movie Brewdio podcast with J.W. and Karl. We are two middle-aged guys living in Western Maryland who love our small towns, yet cling to our past days of social and cultural relevance.
So in this podcast, we talk about the things, the tools, and the resources that enable us to walk through life with a smile on our faces and a little bit of kindness in our hearts and the hellhounds barking on our trail, as you can hear.
And Karl, and we're making a movie.
And we're making a movie.
Now, I was going to take the dogs upstairs.
No,
Taking the dogs upstairs
take
was the thing, and then they were totally calm. As soon as we started talking, as soon as the microphones came on, they wanted to be heard. Come here, Lemon. Come here.
You a licky dog.
She's extremely jealous of Oscar.
All right, come lay down.
All right, everybody, come on. Let's yes, there are dogs in the house, and
Come on, lay down.
the dogs all want to make love to Karl.
Yeah.
He is.
So I got that going for me.
Yep. He's the guy. Okay, enough, guys. Seriously.
Right.
So anyway, how's the week? Seriously, guys, we can't be doing that.
Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom breaking out with Jim tackling a lion while what's his name was in the helicopter. What was the guy's name?
From
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Remember.
I don't remember. Anyway, it's been a pretty decent week, all things considered.
A crazy week.
You've had a very crazy week. Your week has been a lot more crazy than mine.
Well, I went from, I feel like a couple weeks ago going, oh man, how am I going to fill my time, to now, suddenly, we got the ball rolling. I think the podcast is a big part of it.
Yeah.
But announcing I was going to do a film, that kind of made a couple other things spring up. A couple other film possibilities come up.
That's awesome.
Whether locally or in the Cleveland area, and suddenly there's not quite enough hours in a day.
Yeah, which is high class problem to have. But
yeah, I'm not complaining about that.
No, it's really cool. It's nice to see the ball. The ball started to get rolling, and we did we were at QCP last night for Improv, which was great.
God.
And
I still my high point of the week. This podcast is one of my high points of the week, but Improv just is making me laugh hard. It's been so much fun. It's so much fun when you have a class of really engaged students.
Yeah.
And the kids are certainly engaged. Like I said, it's like herding cats sometimes.
Yeah.
But overall, they get it, and we can reel them in and have some good laughs in there. And then I just am continually blown away that we've had such a good showing of adults.
Yeah.
And nobody sucks either.
Right. Yeah, they're
good.
really. I don't know that we really had many duds. Really, when you're on stage and it's just not happening. But I think it's really interesting that everybody who has shown up has been really engaged and super they're really good listeners, and they can sit and kind of let things happen and then wait for the funny moments. And that's something I struggle with when I'm on stage, because I feel like I have to make something happen, and you have to think no, you have to play the scene and just let things like that, it'll come out.
Well, I'll tell you, they're really you're all really patient improvisers, and from time to time, how do I say this gently without offending a lot of people that I know? But it's people that do acting for a living.
Right.
Sometimes don't always make the best improvisers.
Right.
Because they can be a little more selfish. Mm-hmm. They don't really understand the give and take of the teamwork that comes along with improv. And we just have such a gathering of, you're all really good, competent actors, but there's not an actor's ego there. There's a true improv mentality and a generosity of spirit, a willingness to share the stage. And it's not a thinking process. It's just this generosity of spirit and the ability to go, oh, okay, if Carl's going to be the energetic one in the scene, then I need to be a little more laid back.
Right.
You know, if this person's going to be the funny character, I need to be the straight man. And it's that ability to constantly give the other person in the scene what they need for the scene to succeed as a whole, not as a look how funny I am moment. We just don't have an ego in the group like that.
Yeah, and I think and everyone has been, I think, really good at also, like that generosity has also extended to like pulling, if somebody's blocked, somebody doesn't know where to go with something, there's that generosity to sort of throw something out there, like hey, here's a life preserver you can grab onto, where you go like, oh, okay, now I know where I'm going, now I know where I need to go with this.
Well, that's what I always valued so much about improv, and we played some decent stages in the time in LA. We played the Laugh Factory and the Comedy Store, and different the Ice House, different places like that would mostly feature stand-up, but we'd get a little turn at it as an improv group. And there's a crowd there and they expect you to be funny, and it's not always, improv is not always funny, and sometimes doesn't. Generally plays good to a house, but except when it doesn't, and some things fall down. But the great thing about improv is that it's always a team. You never fail alone. You always, everybody goes down together. and so you said the life preserver, but that's there is some comfort in, man, if we're gonna fail, we'll all fail at this together.
Right, exactly. And it's really, I think it helps get you over that fear of bombing. Like, because I think when you're on stage acting, there's always in the back of your mind, like, oh, what if the crowd doesn't go for what if the audience? Because I've done shows where I know it's funny. I know it's a funny show, and I know, like, I'm confident in my ability and the ability of everyone around me. And especially doing like community theater, you never know what your audience is going to be. Like, Sunday matinees are the worst because it's little old ladies from church.
Sure.
And it's, families with kids.
We used to do improv at church. Seriously, we used to play to a church.
And
in
it was,
California.
like, you just go, like, I have no idea how the audience is going to respond. And I've seen shows, like, I've done like lighting and sound for shows where I'm watching the show. I've seen the show 50 times at this point, and I'm laughing at what's happening on stage, and there's nothing. There's nothing. There's a lone dog is barking somewhere outside, and you just go like, what is that? But I think doing improv, you get over that. Because you have to have a short memory. It's just like, well, I bombed that one. I screwed that one up.
You're making me have these thoughts right now, and I'm having Facebook problems right now. Like, I can't. The environment,
it's
leading
bad
up to and since the election has been so toxic. And people that you think are saying abominable things on both sides, and, and you just know. I can't look at it. It's just like this train wreck that's happening, and people are the lines are dividing up. I don't want to talk about politics, but that's just clearly that's happening on Facebook. But I guess my point was, how does wanting to be liked on stage or getting over the need to be liked on stage, how does that relate to the modern how many likes did I get on Facebook?
Right.
There's a thing.
There is a thing. I think it is that same impulse to say
validation.
I think if you need validation, and some people grow up without a lot of validation, and like I sort of felt that way. Not that I didn't get. I mean, I had parents who loved me, and I had a family who loved me, but getting on stage for that first time and getting a laugh, doing something that makes people laugh on stage. It is such an incredible feeling, and that sense of power to walk out, like when you're really confident on stage and you feel like you can walk out and get the audience to come along with you with whatever you do. That's a really powerful feeling.
But what I want to look at is the opposite of that. Is like the getting over when you throw one out there and it just falls flat.
And
it's like,
just
wow,
dies,
that wasn't as funny as I thought it was going to be. Obviously, they met, the crickets chirping. But I think when you do that and they have that reaction, even when it's like, man, I thought that was really funny.
I thought that would kill,
But I thought that would kill, but it didn't. But there's a resiliency that improv teaches, or hopefully it teaches. Yeah. People keep coming back. Nobody has failed at a joke and not come back.
Right.
But there's a resiliency it teaches you that's like, okay, well, you know what? I did something that wasn't funny, that did not receive the validation that I wanted.
Right.
And I lived through it.
Right.
Like, oh my God.
Right.
I don't have to unfriend the audience.
Right.
Wow. That was okay.
It was bad. I took my beating. I think there's a real...
I can laugh at myself.
Yeah, and it was fine.
Yeah.
I think there's a real... Oscar Wilde talked about that when he... because Oscar Wilde was obviously gay in England in the 19th century when it was illegal. And it's a really long story. Oscar Wilde was this great writer and was really a celebrity in England. Got accused of essentially being gay. And in his defense, pretty much came out and said, "Yeah, I'm gay." So he was publicly humiliated.
Sure.
He went to prison. All these things, but he came out of it and he said, like, it was this terrible, like, it was everything that I had always worried would happen to me happened, and I lived through it. I'm alive. I came through it, and it was like you go through this terrible experience, and you come out the other side going, it didn't kill me. It didn't. It's like, I think there's some value to that. Just like sometimes you just have to take your beating, and then you go like, oh, okay, I lived. I survived.
But I think improv really serves as, obviously it's not. Well, I don't know. I mean, some people really have that major phobias of stage fright and that kind of thing, getting up there in the first place.
Yeah, I think people have that, like, there's that nightmare of getting on stage and not knowing you're part of the play and you don't know your lines and you don't know what you're supposed to do, and so I think it feeds into that fear sometimes. But yeah, to see people work through that. Yeah. And to see people, but I think that's also partly the environment, like like doing improv with you is really supportive, and it's really like, hey, well, thank you. It's okay. It's like,
because I suck a lot.
Well, but I mean, it's really, I think if you're learning and the environment is supportive, where someone is saying like, hey, look, you can't think of anything right now. It's okay. Like let's take another round, or let's go through this again. And then that then people, I think, can relax and go, okay, I can do this. I can push through this. But I do think, I think people online, I saw someone, I can't remember who it was, had said that a long time ago, like when you wanted to prove yourself, you went and like got on a fishing vessel and you went out whaling, or you went, you went and conquered the sea and then came back. But we don't have that now, so people want to be famous, right? Like, it's this impulse to sort of like prove your mettle and whatever. And I think Facebook ties in, and Twitter ties into that. So many people who I've seen comedians who say, I don't use Twitter anymore because it ruins my joke writing, rather than taking an idea
absolutely,
and workshopping it and really and looking at it and tearing it apart and putting it back together and figuring out what's the funniest way to say this and what's the best setup and how do I deliver this. You can just type it out, the seed of that joke, and send it out, and people go, oh, that's really funny, and you get that instant feedback. And, so you end up...
Again, that's just helping endorphin levels, and then... But then the same comedian goes to a show, and it's like, he did that stuff on Twitter. Yeah. Well, and also... I don't know.
And I think some of the stuff ends up getting passed around as well, because what you notice is people have a lot of similar ideas. Like I've seen it in stuff that I've said to friends, like, here's my opinion on this topic. And I've not posted it, I've not whatever, but then 3 weeks later, I see it as a meme on Facebook from somebody that I don't know. Right. Well, they didn't hear it from me. They had the same thought. Yeah. Like...
Oh, yeah, well, things exist in the zeitgeist, they drop down, and absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's that, is because then sometimes
I've got a few stories about those, about scripts. Heartbreaking ones that really happened to me.
And you just go like...
I just wrote that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the episode of The Simpsons where Principal Skinner gets fired. And he runs into Bart at the Quickie Mart.
Yes.
And he's like, I've been writing my first novel. It's all about a land where dinosaurs are brought back to life. I call it Billy and the Clonosaurus. And Apu's like, it's Jurassic Park. Don't you know? It's Jurassic Park. It was a #1 bestseller. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think but comedians run into that sometimes where they'll say like, "Oh, you stole that joke from so and so," and it's like
nobody. Rarely did anybody steal anybody's.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, people in the business are actively in the like. You know, there are places that are just like, no, we're not. Don't send it to me. You know, I'm never going to open this.
Right. I don't want to know.
I don't
want to
know. It won't be opened if you send it here. I have a lot of stories like this. I'll tell one at this moment. It's been 20 years ago. I heard a story about something that used to happen during the 1600s called a sin eater.
Oh, okay,
basically,
right.
You've ever heard of a sin eater?
Sure. Yeah.
Basically, when someone would die in a village, they would pay a vagrant, a pittance to eat a crust of bread and drink a glass of mead, like in a little ceremony, off of the dead body or around the dead body, thus taking the sins of the deceased upon themselves, taking the sins away from the deceased. It was called the Sin Eater. And I went, that is the best horror movie premise I have ever heard. Sat down, wrote a script, end-to-end, 120 pages, end-to-end, my whole thing. Now, I'm not going to say my script was great or anything.
But
the
it
premise,
was done. It was there.
Well, my idea was that this had survived and gone through the years and was still being practiced in this small town, and some, good horror film things ensue from that. Well, the day I finished the script, this was 1996, I believe. Might have been 95, 96. The day I finished it, I lived in L.A. I used to pick up the Hollywood Reporter every week. I picked up the Hollywood Reporter the day I wrote the last page of that script. And a Hollywood Reporter says the Sin Eater sold to Universal for $1 million. And it was literally $1 million. It was sold by the guy that had written Conspiracy Theory. With interestingly enough, Gibson and Julia Roberts film. Directed by the Lethal Weapon guy. Anyway, all that really happened, and the movie I think eventually got made. I think it was called The Order, and Heath Ledger was in it. And the whole Sin Eater idea just kind of dropped out of it, and so whatever. But I put a positive spin on it, and I said that my ideas are worth $1 million.
Right, exactly.
Because I know no one stole it from me. Clearly
no. And I think though that is, I do think there's a trend now through social media, because you can gain a following, and because the transaction is so easy. Like you can post something and instantly get 50 likes on it, and you go like, oh, 50 people like this, but that like is like the smallest iota of a like, because it's people scrolling through on their phone going, oh, that's nice. Like, I like that. Oh,
he said something.
Right.
I mean, a lot of likes that you give are like just conciliatory, like,
I acknowledge you.
Oh, no, I acknowledge you. Hello, you're alive.
Right. I tip my hat at you, sir. Right. I acknowledge your existence. Yeah. And I'll do that. I'll scroll through and it's like somebody I haven't talked to.
I support you.
Yeah, I haven't talked to someone in 3 weeks, and I go like,
I support you. Even though your views are racist and awful, I still support you.
It's like, you as a person, I know you love your wife and take care of your kids. Now, there are people that I'll go like, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a long time.
I used to like you in college.
And it's stuff like, made a great cheese sandwich, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
because then I
know
for you. I know that they're gonna look at their phone and go, good. Carl liked my sandwich post.
Good for you.
Carl's still alive, and we're still friends, and
But that is over. On the other side of it, that's an overinflation of your own importance.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Who's scrolling through going? But I got to find out what Carl thinks about my sandwich post. Yeah.
But do you like when you say something that and I'm guilty of this, and I don't want to be guilty of this. And I haven't been guilty of it for a little while, but I have been guilty of it in the past, going, hey, who liked that? It's like, I said something clever here. Who liked that? And then not only do I count the number of likes, but I look at who liked it.
I know. And that I think is the worst, because that's the equivalent of going, that's the equivalent of going, soup's on, and then looking around like, huh?
What's
you
that?
Get it? Soup's on? Huh? Did you hear what I said? Soup's on. Huh? Soup's on.
Sometimes, and I am admit, how did he get through that door? The door's closed.
Magic.
Unbelievable. I closed the door.
Oscar, that's dedication.
Unbelievable.
That is dedication to get in this room.
No, I will. I'm admittedly a political moderate, a left-leaning moderate, and sometimes I'll state an opinion, and I'm like, boy, I'm not sure whether that sounds conservative or liberal. Right. And then I'll check the likes, and like if one, it's like, ooh, that must have sounded a little more conservative than I wanted it to, or that must have sounded way too liberal. And it's never who liked it, because I know what your political stances are.
Or like, or you look in the comments and you go like, oh, it's because it's like not positive comments. People going, I agree. It's people going, how dare you? Yeah, you were the destruction of the republic. Yeah. I do that sometimes. It's the equivalent of giving yourself a nickname and then trying to get everyone to use that nickname.
It's like Kobe Bryant's Black Mamba. I'm the Black Mamba. No, you just gave that to yourself. You can't give yourself a nickname. I love me some Kobe Bryant. That's right. Like, but he did give himself a nickname. Hey, everybody.
Hinky's here. Like, you gave yourself that nickname. Oh, I guess I hinkied it up. You know?
Oh, no, another hinky.
Oh, boy, that was a hinky, wasn't it? Like, stop saying that. We're not going to call you hinky.
No.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Did they do that on It's Always Sunny?
Oh, I don't know. Probably.
Do you watch It's Always Sunny?
No, I don't actually.
Oh my God! Well, that's kind of what I was gonna, class and the first section that we're just sort of we're sort of barnstorming through today. But it's been a lively discussion. Was what made you laugh this week, and I don't feel like I watched anything new this week.
I don't think I saw anything that really made me laugh. I will say. I watched, because I was curious, I watched the Ghostbusters remake.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So on paper, this looks like a slam dunk. This is
sure.
Paul Feig and directing.
Yeah.
Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, who I think is fantastic. Yeah. Leslie Jones, who's very funny. It's all these people, and
lots of cameos by the old.
Lots of cameos, and on paper it would totally work. You would think like this. How could this not be funny? And it's really uneven and just not. There are some funny parts, and there is some interesting character work. Yeah, but it's not. Well, it is not a great movie.
I think it fell victim to a lot of things. I see. The on paper part, I thought it met with a lot of misogyny and how dare you slander the name of Ghostbusters that is, it's like, who cares? Those guys, other two movies, they'll always be there. No one's going to take them away. They're not going to stop showing them just because they made a new version with female. Why they keep ruining classics? Because it's already branded. It's already guaranteed to make hundreds of $millions no matter how bad it sucks. It's a branded product. Don't you got to understand how marketing works. That's of course.
And nobody, and these are the same people, I would almost guarantee you, who go like, new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, good.
I like the first set in the 90s. But,
making... Oh, hey, more Transformers movies coming. Like, guys, seriously, it's not intellectually consistent.
But you changed it to women.
It's women.
How dare you?
And I think that was I think that was my concern, was that it got a lot of negative press. And I think... Had it been a better movie, I think it would have squashed a lot of that.
I liked it. I
went with the
girls. I took my wife and the kids, and it was it wasn't inappropriate for Jillian, who enjoyed it and enjoyed seeing empowered females and all that kind of stuff. Right. I mean, I liked it. I liked it more than you do.
What I liked about, I think when you contrast it to, it's 2 points. I think you look back on the original Ghostbusters, and I think it's hard to see it in its historical context because the DNA of that movie is in everything that came after it. Anything that was even remotely like Ghostbusters follows that same kind of premise. That you have essentially two straight men, a smart aleck, a black guy, some combination of that.
Yeah.
And mashing up genres. I mean, Ghostbusters was the first big movie that was ghosts and science fiction and comedy and horror and, like all these things combined together. But it's really tightly scripted. When you look at the original script, Dan Aykroyd's character, Harold Ramis's character are very straight. I mean, they're very they wring humor out of it by playing these characters, but they're playing these characters straight up.
Right.
Bill Murray's character is the smart aleck. He's, but it works really well because it contrasts with the other two guys.
Sure.
Now, the interesting thing is in the original casting idea was to get, for Winston Zeddemore, who Ernie Hudson played, was to get, his name's Eddie Murphy.
Right.
Right, to play that character, which would have been a completely different movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, Ernie Hudson comes in, gives a very workmanlike character performance like he does. He's a solid actor, but you have not Harold Ramis, but Rick Moranis is in that movie and is great playing. I mean, fully in a character. Sigourney Weaver is really good in that movie, but it's very structured. It's sort of that kind of 80s formalized. This is how we do it.
Well, see, this is what I didn't like about the remake was where it went with effects and all that. Once we get into the CGI, I don't like obvious CGI. And I know they were sort of trying to recreate a style from 30 years ago. To me, that whole aspect of it didn't work. Didn't make much sense. Was very obvious.
I would rather have practical effects, but I think also there's that it was a movie that I think you could tell they just let the camera roll, and they just let the camera roll, and the more they let the camera roll, they just like, okay, just keep going, and we'll cut it together. And everyone's kind of not mugging for the camera, but everyone is very aware that they're trying to do, and like Melissa McCarthy, if you just let her go, that's kind of her style. That's what she does. Like she can improvise, fairly well. Yeah. Kristen Wiig can improvise fairly well. Kate McKinnon, everybody. But I think it lacked the structure. It lacked the story arc of like, well, where are these characters going? And they tried to kind of hammer it in there, but it just doesn't. It just didn't work. It didn't work for me. I don't think it's a terrible movie.
I think it was mediocre, and it had some laughs. And I enjoyed it. I saw it in the movie theater, so I enjoyed the spectacle of it.
It was disappointing to me that it was not better because I'd really hoped that it would be really good,
right,
to shut everybody up. Like here's a movie that everybody like when the Lord of the Rings, the first movie, was going to come out, and everyone was like, they're going to ruin it. It's going to be terrible. Like, no one can do it.
Really good.
Yeah, and then you watch it, and you're like, and it was only the really hardcore fans who were like, well, obviously they.
So they made them 3 Hobbit movies,
right? Yeah. So it was interesting to see. I typically don't watch stuff that I know is not going to be very good because I don't have a lot of time to sit and watch stuff that's not very good. But I thought, I had time, and I thought I'll watch this and see what it's like. And it was, I don't know. I think it's interesting to go back and watch stuff that doesn't quite work sometimes to get an appreciation of how stuff does work.
And there's always people have interpretations. Everyone's a critic now. Everybody writes. I saw a blog up today, or I try to check. I do a cursory skim of the Google News feed, and I've heard good things about Taylor Hackford's The Comedian with Robert De Niro.
I haven't seen that.
All that. And he plays an aging comedian, who once had a sitcom and is now trying to make a living. And I've heard nice things about it, but somebody wrote, comedian's awful and an insult to comics and blah, with that headline. It's like, well, this is nobody that just had an opinion, back to our discussion about Ebert last week, like people
right.
who were qualified to have an opinion used to do this.
Right. And I think that's, you have to look at people. I think there are people who can come up not having, because Ebert came from kind of a blue collar background.
Sure.
And loved all different kinds of films.
Mm-hmm.
Liked Hollywood blockbusters if they were good.
Yeah.
Liked French New Wave cinema. Liked
sure.
the weird stuff from Japan. And I mean, if it was good. And
he was truly a film scholar.
He was a film scholar, and he gave everything, I think, an even shake.
Do we have film scholars that review films anymore? I mean, is that even a thing, or it's just like if you have because see, my point about this guy was I think that probably most people are writing nice things about the comedian, or I don't even, it could have been girl, I don't know,
right.
But this person wrote something negative with an inflammatory clickbait headline
because
it jumped up in Google News,
right?
That's like,
there's that part of it too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the more you read, there were people who I used to read a lot, and I loved Ebert, and because I felt like we had similar sensibilities. I felt like he had some of that blue collar whatever that if he said like this movie is, and I didn't expect him to like Dude, Where's My Car? And even though I think, that
is actually a really good movie.
It's a stupid, funny movie.
That's a really good movie. I love Dude, and I'd heard so much negative about it. When I finally watched it, I'm like, this is hilarious. Yeah. I love the everything happens in one night premise.
Right. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite. I actually wrote a movie called Flamingo Dreams and produced it many, many years ago. It's never seen the light. I might see if I can get that some YouTube life after the special school thing. But yeah, I'm a fan of Dude, Where's My Car? But anyway,
one of our favorite movies growing up was Clue. I don't know if you remember Clue.
Fun. Well, I liked all the different endings and all that
endings and the character work in Clue. But I always felt like
it got panned critically.
Yes, critically.
And then now people regard it as a classic.
Yeah.
So, that's all,
so nobody, like we were saying before we started recording, nobody knows anything. Yep. Nobody knows what's going to be.
Nobody knows anything.
So
Well, I started to talk about earlier, and you said you've never watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I've seen an episode or two here and there.
I recommend it. I think they're on 11 or 12 seasons now, and I'll go away for a couple seasons, then I'll binge on Netflix. It's one that I put on the background when I'm doing something else, like do a little construction work, or this weekend it was doing all these business plans around the films.
Yeah.
I had to just sit down with something on the background. I could look up, have a laugh, go back to working for an hour. And I love this show. It is so funny. It's so wonderfully offensive. Right. But it gets away with being offensive because the characters are horrible people.
Right.
And I think it's constantly fresh and original. They find new and different ways to be reprehensible, offensive people.
And
I just love it.
It's such an interesting, because you don't see it a lot in American comedy.
Yeah.
Where like none of the characters are likable people.
But they're somehow charming. Yeah. And that's it is Charlie Day is just I just love that guy.
Yeah.
And there's a charm that works because you're like, oh, he's so stupid. Oh, he's so offensive. Oh, but you still love him because there's just a charm to him. And all the characters have a similar measure of it. I really think Charlie Day drives the show.
Yeah.
And then Caitlin Olsen is fantastic.
Yeah.
She's got a Fox deal now.
Oh, yeah.
And she's married to Rob McElhenney. I can't say his name, whatever his name is. They're actually married and they have kids together.
Huh.
And he's got a big sci-fi project going.
That's
again, podcast information. I heard him on, I think it was Marin.
Yeah.
It was only a year or two ago. So so they've done real well off that show. And they're doing other things, and yet they've still come back and done another season. Like I said, I can't remember. There are 11, 12, 13 seasons of it.
Yeah.
but really fun. I recommend it. I think
that's interesting. I'll
takes
have
a
to
little
take
while.
Look. Well, I think that it's interesting because there's a British tradition for that. Like if you watch the Young Ones,
yeah, I love the Young Ones.
Like
that was
they're all they're all bad characters, and you root for them to fail. Faulty Towers is that way.
Yeah,
there really is no likable character on Faulty Towers. Because everyone is kind of self-serving, and then when their plan blows up, when Basil Fawlty's plan blows up in his face, you go like, well, yeah, I want you to fail.
I kind of wanted you to fail.
Yeah,
and with the Young Ones, it was Rick Mayall was. I
was so
love
funny.
Rick, but all of them, Rick and Ade Edmondson,
Yeah.
and who's the guy that played Neil? I forget his name.
I can't remember his name.
I never liked the Mike character, and I didn't like Alexi.
No.
But I loved Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson, who went on to other things. And Rick passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah. Rick Mayall, so funny as Rick.
But he had that Charlie Day thing where it's like, there's something so pathetic about him that you love him. And he was...
And the children will cry and say, where has their poet gone?
All right, hands up, who likes me?
And they all put their hands down. Why don't you like me? Why don't you like me? And
that was like...
Because you're a complete bastard.
They did, what was it, 10 episodes or 11 episodes? I think it was 11 episodes of that. And it hit MTV right when we were in the transition between high school and college. And we were playing in a rock band. And we would tape it on VHS tapes.
Right.
And we must have watched those 10 episodes 1,000 times.
Just such a fantastic show.
1,000 times.
And again, like a show where they well, like the first episode where they blow up the house at the end. And then it was like, okay, we'll come back for a couple more episodes. But then at the end, they drive the bus off the cliff.
They drive the bus off the cliff.
It's fantastic.
That's what, if you think about it, the British are really the origin of that binge. Like, they knew how many episodes they were going to get, and that was it. And they've reformed and done many other series.
There was a show called The High Life. That
was Aiden and
it was
and Rick Mayall, wasn't it? No.
What's the guy's name? He's done a ton of stuff, and the only thing I can think of is he was Nightcrawler in the Bryan Singer X-Men, the X2.
Oh,
and he was the bad guy in the first Spy Kids. He's a Scottish actor.
Mm-hmm.
I can see his face.
And we're not going to look on social media.
But it's
anywhere.
It's them. It's him, and they wrote it. It's this super Scottish, incredibly Scottish show. And they work for Scotia Air, and they fly. And then it's just them insulting the passengers, and they're flight attendants, and so they're just terrible. It's such a funny show. The highlight, and it has one of the best theme songs ever. Like it's like a 20-second theme song, which is like a full musical production. The High Life. It's really funny.
Were you into Ab Fab when it was on?
I couldn't wrap my head around Ab Fab because it didn't strike me because I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to like the characters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really... It took me a long time. Going back and watching it now, I could laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like, why are they so bad? Why are they so awful
terrible
all the time?
Well, I love that reversed comic dynamic in that, and then her Jennifer Saunders having the responsible daughter.
Yes.
The daughter who parented the parents. Because Tess and I feel like that often with Jillian. We feel like, I don't know, Jillian, what do you think we should do about Benjamin?
Right.
That comic dynamic just really worked for me. I don't know.
I don't know. Ab Fab never really... It was. I thought the same thing the first time I saw Dr. Strangelove. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around Dr. Strangelove until the scene where the fight breaks out in the war room, and the guy gets up and goes, "Gentlemen, there's no fighting in the war room." And I was like, "Oh, wait, it's a I get it. You can't watch it as a straight movie. You have to watch it as a satire." So I don't know. We watched a lot of British comedy. Like when BBC America first came on, there was a lot of stuff that was. We watched like Father Ted. I don't know if you remember Father Ted.
No.
Like these, it was like these Irish.
I am way uninformed on these British shows.
They were like these Irish priests, and you know, and they lived in a monastery or whatever. And we watched The Vicar of Dibley, which was a pretty.
Now,
funny
where
show.
are they? Are they up anywhere for public consumption now? I know they, occasionally will pop in on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, but
I don't know. I'm not sure. Some of that stuff
I'm
is.
I'm sure there's a BBC.
Yeah, some of that stuff is pretty rare.
Yeah.
If you search around for it, you can typically turn it up either through legal or
because you think about
alternatively
the nature,
legal.
What I said early. I don't do that. I'm not judging you. I'm judging you a little.
I'm judging
bit,
you a little
I'm
bit.
Judging you a little bit.
Yeah,
I've never seen any back end of the two films that I've done.
Right.
But I don't know that that's responsible for.
I don't intentionally kind of look for stuff.
It's okay.
I don't know. It depends on stuff that, like, if it's stuff that I cannot legally get it somehow. Are we talking about movies?
Drugs
I'm talking about movies. Well, as an example, there was a comic book series that went out of print. You couldn't find it. Back issues were really scarce, and so I found them online. But then when they
I don't think that is harmful looking at comic books because simply people that collect comic books want those things.
Yeah, and when those issues were re-released, I bought them. Like I went and bought copies of them to balance my karma. You know,
gotcha.
And I do think there are times where
balance my karma.
Sometimes you can't find Mystery Science Theater episodes because they go out of print, or they lose the rights to the movie that they're riffing. So what they do is you can find them other places, to watch or to download. But then when they're re-released, you buy a copy. I think that's how you can do it. Or if it's something,
if you can sleep at night, Karl, that works for me.
It
does sound like a very ethical approach to.
I think the other part of it is if it's something that I know I'm not going to spend money on.
Right.
Like I know the only way I'm going to see this movie is if I watch it this way.
Right.
Because then I don't feel like there are very few movies that come out honestly that I go, I got to see that in a theater. Right. Now there are some movies that I'm like, look, I saw it in a theater. When it comes out on DVD, I want to own it. I want a copy of that movie.
Sure.
So for movie for that, no, I'm going to buy a copy of that. If it's something that I'm never going to watch, and I'll do it all the time. Like someone will go, I watched the greatest horror movie and it's got this twist ending, and I said, what is it? Like, well, I don't want to ruin it for you, guys. I'm never going to watch this movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ruin away because
he was dead the whole time.
He was really a ghost.
He was really a ghost the whole time. Yeah. So my next bit is what's new at the movie Brewdio. We've kind of talked about that.
Yeah, got a lot of stuff going on.
Gonna make a movie. And then suddenly I've had a couple other movies that I want to make. Suddenly there's some interest in them. My goal is I want to make a movie locally. I want to make a movie right here in Frostburg, and then I have some connections and some people in Cleveland that want to make movies too. So they're gonna, try to put the money in the bank quicker than the people in Maryland. So it's a good problem.
Hey, absolutely. Something else
that happens.
The movie Brewdio. Before, I guess people will have an opportunity to hear this before it happens, but Monday we'll be at Oscars in Cumberland with Allegheny Allied Arts for the Film Lab.
Yes, new thing. Why don't you speak to that with the details? You know a little bit more about than I do. I'm going to show up on Monday.
Yes,
and learn a lot about this. And actually, I think Amanda Mangan. I think I'm supposed to do an interview with her at some point.
Oh, nice.
She's inquired about doing an interview. I've interviewed with her before. I like Amanda a lot.
Amanda's great.
Yeah.
She is
a good human being.
Full disclosure, she's a coworker of mine as well, but she is like
that's okay.
Demonstrably right.
Yeah.
No, she's wonderful. So
whenever I was floating around the idea of doing a movie studio here when I first moved here and was just trying to get on my feet, she was really, really interested.
Yeah.
So now that the ball's rolling a bit here, Actually, I saw she liked the movie Brewdio page
Nice.
this morning.
Very good.
So we're back on the radar with her.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so the Film Lab is a collaboration between the movie Brewdio and Allegheny Allied Arts, who is run by a great guy, David Rohrbaugh, and Allegheny Allied Arts has done. They do all sorts of sort of film related and arts related things in Cumberland. They've done Rocky Horror Picture Show for the past couple Halloweens in Cumberland. I was at the last Rocky Horror Picture Show in 2016, which was absolutely bananas, and it was just packed to the gunwales with people coming to see Rocky Horror. And that event has really grown for them, and they also do. David and Eve do a yeoman's job putting on the Queen City Film Festival every year in September, and I've been. It's been really cool. I've been a screener. Mm-hmm. I was really officially a screener last year because I actually did get the opportunity to screen some films. Uh-huh. Every other year I go, look, I will totally be a screener, and then I never have time to actually screen films. But it was really amazing to see. It was really amazing to be a screener and to see such good work. Mm-hmm. Like there were some shorts and some features that came through.
See, that's one thing
so good.
I love short films.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. I used to go to Sundance every year, and I used to love to sit and watch the short film festivals. I've made a few short films. Yeah. At the time, there's no market for them. I always tell young filmmakers, if you're going to make a short, just make a feature. There's nowhere to sell here. But now that's changing a little bit. Now that we have streaming outlets, there are reasons to do short films, and I think I love them.
Yeah, I think, and I agree to some degree. Like, look, make a feature if you're going to do it. If you can't make a feature, make a short. Make something. It's better to make a short film than to not make anything. And I think to some degree, short films can be a nice launch pad for a feature where you're workshopping stuff. You're figuring out, like, I always think about Napoleon Dynamite and the short that they did that really led into that.
Sling Blade, they did a short before the feature of Sling Blade, and I actually saw that I didn't see it at Sundance. I was in Independent Film Club or something in L.A., and they screened his short before a feature. I forget what the feature was, but the short was, some folks call it a Sling Blade, was the name of it, and it was mostly him just doing a monologue. But Molly Ringwald was actually a reporter at the beginning of the short, and then she didn't do when they expanded it into a feature. They didn't do. She wasn't in the feature.
Huh. How interesting.
Yeah. It was.
I guess
now it's been too many years that I've seen either the short or the feature, but there's a lengthy monologue in it. He used to do it as a performance piece. The character of Karl. Oh, that's what I should call. Well, now that has a whole different meaning. Now it's a Walking Dead thing,
right?
And none of the wits like you walk in and go, "My nickname's Karl." Anyway. But anyway, short films. Short films.
So the Queen City Film Festival, which will be in I think September, October this year in Cumberland.
We're going to fill some seats at that this year.
Yeah, it's really the 6th or 7th year of the film festival.
And that's one of the things that's kind of in the business plan for what I really want to do at the movie Brewdio is to have a film festival here that the two entities can promote one another, and I don't actually want to run a film festival, but I want to support the one that's going on here already, grow that into something as we grow a movie studio.
So we're going to be we'll be at Oscar's restaurant in Cumberland on Monday at, is that 7?
Boy, don't quote that sounds right. Could be 6. Sometime on Monday night. The info will be all over Facebook. Yes, we'll promote it on the Movie Brewdio page.
But the Film Lab is a collaboration where we're going to get together, talk shop, talk film.
Yeah.
Watch some shorts. Watch eventually. I think have some screeners.
Nice.
Just have a sort of an Algonquin roundtable. I think is kind of how I've taken it.
And we really want to, gather the local like-minded folks because I know the people I know. Karl knows the people I know. David knows the people he knows. But I know there are other people around here that are interested in film. So, which brings me to I taught my first class at FSU yesterday, and that was all we wanted to say about the.
Yes,
just check. I don't want to
check Facebook
into something else.
Check Facebook, and we'll have more information on the film lab. But I'm super excited. I've always wanted to.
Yeah, and David seems like just such
a
great cool dude.
He's a great guy. He's a cinemaphile from way back, knows film in and out.
Nice,
and just they're really really good people. So like to take different organizations and match them up and say, hey, we do this, because there's so much. Yeah, and David and I have talked about this a lot. There's so much stovepiping in our community, unfortunately, where what do? You do film stuff, I do film stuff too, but we can't be friends. Yeah, right? Like we can't collaborate. And you just go, why? Why can't we? What are you, an arts organization? So am I. We're enemies now. Like, but why? We don't have to. We could collaborate and expand what we do. Yeah.
That is that's not the thinking that leads to success. So I intend to collaborate with anybody and everybody who has an interest in film in this area, because we're gonna make a thing here.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is a first of what I'm sure will be many public events, but we're meeting one Monday a month.
One Monday a month, like the first Monday of every month at Oscar's Restaurant, which is on Old Town Road in Cumberland.
With the exception of September, which is Labor Day. I believe it's rescheduled for the following night on Tuesday.
Yes.
But
there'll
be a million We'll have a million people showing up.
I hope so. Check obviously the Movie Brewdio Facebook, and you can check out Allegheny Allied Arts on Facebook as well.
Yes.
And they'll have all that information.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was segging into was, speaking of meeting other like-minded people, I taught my first class in acting for the camera over at FSU yesterday, and had, I think, 14 of my 16 students were there. 2 of them were auditioning for something out of town, but the 14 were there were just delightful.
Awesome.
And only two of them that I knew from before, and the rest of them all knew. Very bright, creative, We didn't do much yesterday other than read the syllabus as you do in the first class, but we messed around, did a little improv, handed out some scenes, and I just met a couple of young guys, Brandon and Kyrie, and we really clicked. We were talking about films, we were talking about comic books, we were talking about the Avengers, we were talking about Moonlight, we were just talking about. They're of our ilk,
right?
I think even more so of your ilk.
Yes,
Karl,
you were describing it as like
nerds.
Superhero comic book nerds, and I was like, please, where are these people?
But now here's the thing: they apparently used to do a radio show with FSU Radio, and or a podcast with someone else who's no longer there. I think graduated or whatever, and they were kind of like, we haven't done our podcast because this one moved on or whatever, and I was like. We'll produce that podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I somehow in the next couple of weeks the Movie Brewdio is going to be behind a second podcast.
Nice.
These 2 young men, Brandon and Kyrie, are going to talk about movies, talk about comic books, kind of a real geekdom sort of a gathering, and we will gladly put that out under our banner. And but. When you talk about just finding other people that are in this, I got at least 16 FSU students who are real into the kind of things that we're doing.
Awesome.
And I think that we'll, the more that we actually start to produce things, show up for things, and do podcasts, I think that we'll gather an army.
Yeah. Let's hope. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to you meeting these 2 guys.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Really, really sweet kids, very bright, and they know their movies.
Okay.
They know their comic books too.
That is
I don't
even
know
better.
my comic books. That is
I'm rusty. I'm rusty on my comics, but it'll all come back to me, I'm sure.
Oh, that's awesome. So we've sort of talked around this a little bit. What are you listening to? Are you listening to anything?
What I find myself mostly on YouTube these days, which is interesting.
Okay, that's cool.
So I found this web series called What I Learned Today. That was something I was watching over the weekend. just a guy who does sort of informational videos, and they're sort of autobiographical to some degree, talking about, but he'll talk about sort of like getting in shape, losing weight, like, he had a longer one that was about sort of everything I ever learned was a lie, or like, and it was him telling his story, the story of his life from a third person perspective.
Right.
But then putting in moments where his windows of perception opened to other alternatives. So like, like this child was born, his parents did this and this is how he was raised, and when he went to school, he was a hyper kid. They put him on Ritalin for ADD, and then as he went through life, all these different things happened, and he started to realize like, like he has his own son, and he realizes, I don't want to put him on medicine. I want to do this, and like, his educational experience. Then with his son, he realizes like, there are Montessori schools, and there are all these different alternatives to education. It was really, really interesting. And they're really well produced. I think it's called What I Learned Today.
What I Learned Today. I'm interested. I will.
Yeah. And there's another channel that I was watching called Stop, Drop, and Retro. That I don't know how I stumbled across it, but he does he'll do reviews of like crowdfunding projects that he thinks are scams, essentially, and he'll tell you why he thinks it's a scam. And like, he focuses on Indiegogo, because Indiegogo, like Kickstarter, you set a goal, and if you say I need $5,000 to do this thing, then you have to raise $5,000.
Yeah.
If you raise $4,900, you do not get the money.
Right.
You don't. It did not. It failed.
We did that for some promotional money for Doughboy before we had a distributor and stuff, and we failed.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those
it's
things.
like,
now
the people don't. The people that invested don't. Nobody. It's just you failed. You didn't get your money.
Well, now there's Indiegogo, which has flexible funding options.
Okay.
So you say I need $5,000 for my project, but you only raise $1,500.
Yeah.
You keep the $1,500.
Oh, okay.
But part of that is also like you keep the $1,500 and you don't necessarily have to deliver anything.
Right.
So
Indiegogo doesn't have the reputation that Kickstarter does. I mean,
it's kind of what happens to Kickstarter projects that get kicked off Kickstarter.
Gotcha.
They can sort of filter down to Indiegogo.
Because we're going to probably, at some point during the funding process for All-Star, we're going to have to do one of these campaigns. And we have a little,
I think Indiegogo works really well if, for certain projects. If you're saying, like, we want to raise money towards this ultimate goal, and the ultimate goal would be $5,000, but any amount that we get is going to help us get to our goal. Like, if you're upfront about it, then people go like, hey, look, if you get to $5,000, that's great. If you get to $2,000, that's good too. And ethical people are going to deliver on what they say they're going to deliver. Sure. But what happens, what this guy does specifically, he finds technology, like projects, because Kickstarter has a really strict prototype policy. If you want to sell your robotic butler, there has to be a working prototype. You have to be able to show them this thing is real.
Right. Yeah.
We have the ability to create this thing. Whatever. And on Indiegogo,
did you invent a robotic butler? Is that what?
Is
that what this
crossed.
is really? Yeah, that's what this podcast
I want you all to go
really
to Indiegogo. No, but what happens on Indiegogo is...
I love a robot. What? Where'd you come up with? Did somebody do that?
This is what they're not robotic. They're not butlers, but they're like these.
I want a robotic butler.
Like they're these personal.
That's so awesome. Was that the Jetsons or was that the Jetsons had a robotic butler? Oh yeah, well she had the little skirt.
Yeah.
What was her?
Rosie.
Rosie.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I want a Rosie.
Wait,
let's not go. That's not what I meant by that. I meant I want a robotic butler.
I know what you're saying.
Or maid, I guess she was.
Concierge.
Whatever the politically correct term for that is.
But no, he does I want a Rosie. So he does a video talking about these like personal robots that are on Indiegogo, and there's obviously not a working prototype. They obviously have not figured out.
I'm gonna give him my money.
It's
have
really
no money, but if I did,
it's really interesting because he picks and he does like video game reviews and tech reviews, and that stuff doesn't interest me as much. But these reviews of these and he does it not to be mean necessarily. It's not to be a jerk about it, but it's to say, before you put your money on the line, understand what you're actually buying. Because he says, like for some of these projects, if it is a really good idea, a bigger company is going to create a cheaper version of it before you ever are going to see this thing that, like, if somebody invents the self-driving car in their garage, well, before they're going to be able to scale up and actually deliver what they say they're going to deliver, someone's going to see that design and go, oh, that's how you make a self-driving car. And Ford's going to roll out a bunch of self-driving cars, and they're going to be half the price. And none of the headaches, and you don't have to wait. So anyway, so that's what I've been watching and listening to.
I didn't do a lot of podcast listening this week because I really had to focus on what I was working on. So I put on It's Always Sunny. Right. But I did listen to one good one. Actually, I'm still listening to it. Is Henry Rollins was on Joe Rogan.
Oh, I bet that's a great. I bet that's a great interview.
Henry Rollins just made a career out of speaking, and just an interesting guy on it. Henry Rollins was a lead singer of Black Flag in the late '80s, and then the Henry Rollins Band, but segged into a lot of spoken word performances, some form of stand-up comedy. Still does a lot of speaking dates. Did some acting roles here and there, but just an interesting guy. He's doing an interesting thing now, where like he picks a world destination and just goes there, and you have to hear him talk. I mean, trying to explain what he's doing now doesn't do him justice.
That's interesting.
But just experience, going to places where people say, "Oh no, you don't want to go to Baghdad right now."
Oh, I see.
And so he just goes to Baghdad like with nothing and just walks around
and see what happens.
Just experiences.
That's crazy.
What life is like there.
Henry Rollins, he wrote a great book about his days in Black Flag. What was it called? Get in the Van, I think.
Yeah, Get in the Van. I think that was it. And
great,
there were several
like memoir. Yeah,
I read several of his spoken word books or his. I mean, they were almost journals. He just kind of did that train of thought thing. I've always been I don't know if fan's the right word, because I didn't really like his music a whole lot.
I've always had an appreciation for Henry Rollins.
Yes, exactly. That
I'm a Henry Rollins enthusiast.
A Rollins enthusiast. If he puts a robotic butler on Kickstarter, I'm likely going to contribute, because I believe that Henry Rollins could deliver.
It answers Rosie. The door and it's like, "Come inside and sit down." Just screams at people.
What was it? Head Like a Hole. The Rollins Band album, their first album I got. There were a couple songs on it I actually dug.
There was that song "Liar" that was his big.
"'Cause
I'm a liar."
Well, he actually talked on the podcast about that. He really got shot up in popularity because of Beavis and Butthead.
Right.
That were like, look at a vein in his neck.
Beavis and Butthead. We need to do a whole episode on the cultural impact of Beavis, because I
loved Beavis and Butthead.
They killed people's careers. Like, they killed Winger's career.
Well,
you remember Kip Winger? And
they had that coming.
They did. I mean,
that was bad post glam metal.
Yeah, it was hair metal, but like but they were still
a commercial version of hair metal.
They were still working though, and then they had the geeky kid in town, and because the one wore a Metallica shirt and the other had an AC/DC shirt, and the geeky kid in town had a Winger shirt on.
All right,
and that killed it.
Let's break for 2 seconds. Yes. Let me deal with dogs, and we'll continue with Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, I Beavis and Butthead came out when I was, I was probably, what was that, 91? So I was 13.
Wow.
13,
I had just
14,
moved to LA, and I loved it. I thought they were funny. Oh, was it 91 they came around, or a little before that?
It might have been a little before that.
I feel like it was like 89. I feel like it was
maybe.
Before.
Maybe,
No, that's right. I don't think they...
Yeah.
I think I'm actually thinking of when it was 89 that I actually watched the Winger video that they made fun of a couple years later. Because when Winger first came out, I was kind of like, well, these guys are good. I had the first Winger album.
Kip Winger.
But
playing bass and he was like classically trained in ballet, and he would do all the pirouettes and stuff.
But as far as destroying careers, I don't know that anybody actually destroyed anybody's career, because Rollins was saying that. They made fun of, look at that vein in his neck. He was like, man, I made so much money on that song, that video, because Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, but they were really
brought me to popularity.
They were really savage towards Winger and those Winger and Warrant.
I don't know, man. PR is PR. That guy wore because
when
shirt around
when that kid
kid
showed up in a Winger, anybody who was a Winger fan
was
instantly burned their. Because you could not show up to school the next day with the Winger shirt on.
I want a Winger shirt.
Oh, man. It
was
watching that show, because I remember seeing the short. I remember seeing the short on Liquid Television. Do you remember Liquid Television?
Uh-huh.
And they had all these different shorts, short animations.
Yeah,
and
Mike another podcast. Mike Judge has done a couple of, I think he's done the Nerdist and Marin. But yeah, he talked about, he would make stuff on videotape and send it to Liquid Television.
Right.
Send it, and then, he started getting funding for these things.
Yeah.
And,
and then Beavis and Butthead.
And Beavis and Butthead.
And it was, and I remember there was all the controversy about it, and it was, and it was interesting in some ways, because it was looking at it now, it was the start of that. It was the continuation of Mystery Science Theater, that idea of they're watching videos, commenting on what was happening in the videos, and then they had these other, sort of segments in between. So, yeah, I don't know. It was very interesting.
It came up this morning. Our friend, this is two different subjects, but our friend Matt Hunt's wife, Lori, commented this morning. She tagged the two teachers, and she said, "I'm sorry, but Ethan and Matthew have just watched Cornholio.
They know who Cornholio
They know who
is.
The great Cornholio is." I said, that makes me so happy. They're two of my favorite kids. I love these kids.
They're funny kids, yeah.
Now, her husband, Matt Hunt, is probably going to sit in on a podcast with us at some point.
Nice.
I'm finally having a long overdue breakfast with him on Friday. We have some other business interests and stuff, and we need to get on the same page. But he has a bit of broadcast experience, a lot of website experience. So I think that he may be some of the glue in getting the business end of the podcasting stuff that we're doing here together,
right?
And also our advertising package, because as we get listeners, we're going to eventually put some advertising in here,
right?
So totally good guy.
Yeah. It's funny though. I can only imagine what's happening at school today with them knowing who Cornholio is.
I am Cornholio.
I
need
TP
for my bunghole.
I need TP for my bunghole.
Oh my God!
Do you have TP?
We used to
run
around saying, I'm a guy in my early 20s my mid 20s at that point, running around going, I need TP for my bunghole.
And then somebody will go, Beavis, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, what a great
God.
That's
funny stuff. It's just that it was for our generation, and it was I once liked a lot of the music videos that they were showing, because it was mostly the heavy metal hard rock stuff, and enjoyed the commentary and making fun of them. It just was.
It took me back for a second. I was back in high school, which we would quote obviously Beavis and Butthead, and The other thing that my friend Eric and I would quote at each other just at random time when we would see each other in the hallways was clips from Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Oh yeah,
because we had watched that movie and for some reason it stuck in our mind.
Yeah.
And so I'd always ask him for gum, like, "Hey Eric, you got any of that gum?" And he would go, "That's a damn personal question, Carl." And I would ask you to keep your nose out of my personal business, And we would throw that back and forth at each other. Finkel was Einhorn. Einhorn was Finkel. Yeah.
It has, from my generation, the movies we quoted in our college years were Caddyshack, Stripes, Vacation. I mentioned earlier the Cusack movies, the Savage Steve Holland ones, Better Off Dead. One. Well, we didn't really quote One Crazy Summer.
No.
But yeah, mostly Caddyshack. Stripes.
Animal
Original
House.
Vacation, Animal House, of course.
Was a big one.
Those were our videos. The video market had just hit, and we quickly learned how to put two VCRs together and tape the movies that we rented at the video store.
Right. So you were stealing movies too.
I was stealing movies before.
You have no moral position on this. How dare you look down at me?
I definitely, there was some copyright violations, although I didn't profit from showing them. I watched them thousands of times. I used to have a wall of videotapes that I only got rid of a few years ago. And like a few years before I left California, I let go of my wall of movies. That was a big thing.
My father-in-law had the same thing where he just every movie that because my wife worked at a video store. Yeah. And so they had just basically every movie ever made. And I remembered driving up, for some reason I remembered the movie. It came out after Police Academy. I don't know why I was thinking about Police Academy this morning, but there was this movie called Moving Violations. Do you remember?
Bill Murray's brother.
And it
was John. Now Joel was an actor. He's actually a Facebook friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's funny because he'll post pictures of Bill non-public, like them Bill. Hanging out or whatever. Joel's Joel was in One Crazy Summer. But this was John. John, the last I heard, owns a restaurant in L.A.
Oh, okay.
I know. He became a restaurateur. But yeah, Moving Violations was John Murray. Yeah.
It was like kind of a Police Academy knockoff. It was people who had gotten traffic tickets and they were in traffic school and they had police trying to get them their licenses back. Yeah. And I remember seeing that movie when I was probably 7 or 8. Yeah. And parts of it were really funny and parts of it just... I didn't understand the humor because I was so young, and so it was just disturbing. Right? If you're presented with absurdity, people typically either laugh or have a fear response to it. So as I've gotten older, I laugh at something absurd happens and I laugh. But you see some people who something absurd happens, they get scared or they get angry because it's like they don't know how to process it. So yeah, moving violations. Look it up. I'm sure that one's available. On one of your stream.
You're talking about a movie that came out during they couldn't get stuff on video quickly enough at that time. Yeah. And so it was in my wall of videos. Moving Violations survived in there. I kept it, and it had a laugh or two. I mean, it wasn't humorless.
Yeah, it had its moments, but I don't know. I grew up on VHS, so that was VHS was an ever present sort of thing, and we would go growing up in Terre Haute. I would go to Charlie's Quick Stop, which was convenience store. I think they probably sold drugs. I don't want to say that because I can't be for sure.
Are they still in business?
No, they're like a dairy mart
now.
You
can say that. But you could say that. You think they sold drugs?
I don't know. Well, he had everything. He had everything. Everybody knew him. He was a guy. He was a good guy. It was
kind of like Clerk's premise. Yeah. If he wasn't directly dealing it,
somebody was.
Silent Bob and whatever.
Jay and Silent Bob were outside. Charlie was a good guy. He had it was one of the last places I saw where you could go in with a handful of pennies. You could go in with 11 cents and get 11 gummy bears. Right? Penny candy.
Sold to spare cigarettes. That was...
Yeah,
you were never a smoker.
No, I was never a smoker, but...
I used to love that back in the day, was to be able to go and Yeah. Spend, whether it's a nickel or a quarter or whatever, just buy one cigarette. Because I don't, if I get a whole pack, I'm going to smoke a whole pack. I was never that kind of smoker, but every once in a while I'd like to have a cigarette, and then I'd rather not.
And
commit.
like Charlie's Quick Stop had like they had beer and liquor, obviously.
Yeah.
They had cigarettes. They had a small grocery section, so you could get like milk and bread and that kind of stuff. Candy and stuff that kids were into, and they had like some toys, but then they would have like socks and flashlights and whatever. And then they at one point they even had like a little cafe, and you could order food, and they did pizzas, and so I mean they did everything. And they had movies. They had a video rental section. So like all these days of just walking through and seeing. Like avoiding the horror section because that stuff would just creep me out when I was a kid. But seeing those boxes, those VHS boxes in the 80s of, the Reanimator and what was the one with the little thing that flew around and would bury into people's skulls? What was that?
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, what was it? They're remaking
Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator are classics.
Yeah, I mean, just like, and you would see those boxes and just go like, oh, scanners. I remember seeing the box for scanners, and
that was the one with the guy's head blew up.
Yeah,
that was an early Cronenberg. That was his first or second film. That was his second film.
Phantasm. Is the movie where the thing flies
I didn't
around.
see that, and I almost got to work on like Phantasm 3 or 4 or something. They had. I can't remember how that all came out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that was so like those things are burned into my memory on a very, very basic level. Those and moving violations is in there as well. It's all that and moving violations.
My God, I'm trying to think of the ones. There's some bad ones. Electric Dreams. I don't know if you remember Electric Dreams was one during that period that you say it now. It's like, wait a minute, what? ELO had the theme song.
Yeah,
so the music stuck with me.
We watched. My sisters loved Big Business. Do you remember Big Business?
I do remember Big Business.
Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin.
Yes. Yep.
Playing dual roles.
Yeah.
Like two sisters so they're twins who the twins get mixed up at birth. And two of them end up in New York, and two of them end up in the holler in West Virginia. Right? So it's Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin as twins in West Virginia and twins in New York, and then they meet. Right? So it's a comedy of errors, in New York. And
it's a stupid premise.
It's a terrible premise.
But it's exactly
and we watched
exactly the movie of that era.
I watched that movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it. I
swear
just remember the title.
I've seen that movie probably 35 times because they watch it all the time.
The first movie that I had a top-loading VHS. I taped My Bodyguard off of TV.
Okay, yeah.
And Ruth Gordon, Martin Mull, and the Adam, what's his name? Was one of
and Adam Baldwin?
Yeah, and Chris Makepeace.
Yeah.
But whatever happened to Chris Makepeace?
I don't know.
He did a bunch of stuff as the awkward teen.
Yeah, kid. And
then disappeared.
I guess he wasn't
awkward
anymore.
We have to find out what happened to Chris Makepeace, because a lot of those guys come back, and he never came back. So I'm kind of curious. Yeah, he looked like he'd just gotten out of bed. And his hair was always messed up.
He kind of had that.
One of the it's like Adam Baldwin, but it's not one of the Baldwins.
Yeah, no. He went on to be
in it. Yeah.
He went on to be. He's done character work.
Yeah, he still works.
He was on Firefly.
Yeah, I think so.
And kind of like conservative. Like
really?
Yeah. Might want to drop
interesting,
yeah.
No. Unfortunately, my movies played a conservative audience. Sometimes, certainly the family films do. So
I
might be able to get him for the All-Star film.
That's a possibility.
Like I said, I ride the middle of the road here. I know my audience, man.
I think the first movie. What was the first movie I saw on VHS? It was probably Follow That Bird, the Big Bird movie. The Sesame Street movie, because I was probably 7 or 8.
I can't believe you were a child when I was a semi-adult.
No, I think weird. The first movie I saw on VHS was, I was even younger than I was probably 5 or 6, and watched The Legend of Nim.
Yeah, I remember The Legend of Nim.
And talk about like that blew my mind when I was 6. Like, holy crap! I'd never, it's like, we're gonna watch a cartoon.
Is it The Secret of Nim?
The Secret of Nim.
Secret of Nim. Yes,
sorry,
thank you.
Secret of Nim. And like, so you're used to watching like Saturday morning cartoons, and here's like rats killing each other, and it was dark.
What's up with that? Yeah,
it was. I don't know. I don't know what Mom and Dad were thinking. I guess they were thinking, oh, it's a cartoon. Here, watch a cartoon for a half an hour or an hour and a half. Yeah. Anyway, that was fun talking about VHS.
I could go on. This is actually.
It's a forgotten technology. It's a forgotten experience.
Maybe this is an interesting. Yeah. Maybe this is an interesting section we should discuss a little bit more. Like, old VHS, like VHS memories and like things like I'm suddenly I'm very interested. Whatever happened to Chris Makepeace?
Right.
Well, he was in. What did he do? He did that. Oh, he did like 3 or 4 things in that era.
Was he in Weird Science?
No, it's not him. That is another one. Not Thomas Ian Griffith. He's a 3-name actor. It's Anthony Michael Hall and that kid. Tess was just watching.
And he was but again, there was that was a very specific role. Like there was a Billy Zabka role, like the bad guy in Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
now he's a friend. Now do you know? Oh, okay. So put him in a body bag, Tommy. Okay. The classic line. Right. That was uttered by Rob Garrison,
right,
who lives in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Who is in The Pledge.
Oh.
He plays the uncle that appears at the end of that's our friend Rob. He's a good Facebook friend. He's just a super awesome, really, really, really good guy. I can't say enough good. But anyway, he's still in touch with the bad guy in that who you just mentioned.
Yeah, Billy
and
Zabka,
he was in town last
at
year.
Kickmasters.
He and Rob came up to Kickmasters a weekend that I was out of town, so I didn't get to see Rob that weekend.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so that's our little Pledge touching.
Yeah.
It is quoted as like one of the most quoted movie lines of all time.
Oh,
Put him in a body bag, Tommy. That was our buddy Rob.
Sweep the leg.
Man.
Yeah. Well,
He's a good human being. I like Rob so much.
There are movies that I think are also forgotten. Do you remember Remo Williams, The Legend?
Yes,
Begins?
Remo Williams. Surprisingly good movie. Joel Grey played the
Joel Grey's in it,
Jedi Master in that, and
what's the guy?
Fred Ward.
Fred Ward. Now, talk about a great character actor who pops up like he was in Tremors, right?
He did a movie with Dee Wallace and Tommy Howell and Lori whatever that went on to do Full House or whatever.
Lori Loughlin?
Yeah, Lori Loughlin. There's a movie they did called Secret Admirer. And Dee doesn't do much comedy, and she doesn't think she's funny. She is so freaking hysterical in this. She's married to Fred Ward, and she is having a sort of affair with Cliff D. Young because of a love letter that gets passed to the wrong person between Tommy Howell and I think it's Kelly Preston.
Oh, wow.
And Lori Loughlin.
That's an all-star cast.
It is a really funny little overlooked gem of a movie. Secret Admirer. I think we should definitely have a section of talking about 80s movies, 80s culture, because love this.
There's also an era where there's an era, I think anytime you have technology switching, there's a selection of movies that gets lost. So when the DVD switch happened in 99, 2000, 2001, right around that time, there are movies that
many of these movies we're talking about probably didn't make it. I imagine Secret Admirer would be hard to find. There was a film in 1993, one of my all-time favorite films. It is really difficult to find. It's called Fearless. And Rosie Perez won an Oscar for it, actually. It's Jeff Bridges, John Turturro. It's a Peter Weir film. He did he did it after Dead. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
One of my movie affects me on such a visceral level. Like I just start weeping when I watch this movie. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
It's funny because
think of movies that I cannot get I can't stream it anywhere.
Right.
I don't know who owns the rights to it, but it's hard to get a hold of.
One of Tracy's favorite movies of all time is The Last American Virgin. Do you remember The Last?
Yes,
American
I remember
Virgin?
that. Yeah.
Right. Kind of a Porky's Fast Time at Ridgemont High, whatever. But the soundtrack is amazing. Yeah. It's like the Cars and Tommy Two-Tone and all these new wave bands. It's like and it's, I don't know that it's a great movie. But it's a movie that really stuck with her. And it's really hard to find. The Last American Virgin.
All right. Well, I think we've hit on a hot subject that I'll write down. We'll touch on this a bit every week. So before we run out of time, what did you do this week not related to technology?
I've been working on my on electric guitar, which we talked about, and I started to think, I've got a lot of hardware kind of sitting around. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, I wonder if I can build like a fretless bass guitar. And I don't know. I'm really just designing it in my head at this point. Mm-hmm. And it's a really nice technique I found to fall asleep when I can't fall asleep. Uh-huh. If I close my eyes and I start visualizing how I would build it, how I would put it together.
So you don't sleep with TV and stuff?
No.
Good for you.
I can't.
I wish I could. I've gotten in a terrible habit of doing that.
No, I'm probably to the point where it would keep me too awake. But no, I because especially when I work weekends, if I'm working overnight, I get home and it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and you have to I have to go to sleep. Yeah, and that's just a trick I've learned that works really well. But that's what I've been doing. I've been thinking how would I do it? What would I need? How much? How would I put the pieces together? What would I have to do?
We used to in our little spiritual school that I went to. I mean, there's something. There's a lot of stuff around that. What you're doing is a brilliant technique. One of it's called bedtime intentions. Mm-hmm. Write down something that you want, that you're troubling with, that you don't have the answer to it.
Right.
We used to say physically writing it down, but at the same time, just visualizing it or knowing that you want the answer to this question and sleeping, usually your subconscious mind will give that to you. That's where I got the idea for the Sin Eater. No, but it really will. If there's a problem you can't work out.
I'm going to have to try that. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I've really been looking at at getting into the 5-minute journaling that Tim Ferriss talks about. You heard of this?
No, I haven't.
I think is it 5 minutes, 15-minute journal.
Or just get up in the morning and
when you get up and you write it, but it's like a guided exercise where it's like things you want to accomplish, things, whatever goals, different things. And then at night you spend another 5 minutes kind of tallying up what you actually accomplished and things that happen and whatever. It's a really interesting technique, I think.
There's so much value in the basics of spiritual practice. Many years ago when I used to write regularly, before I had wife and kids, responsibility and stuff, when I was this free spirit living in California, I used to do the morning pages, which were what's the spiritual teacher that wrote The Artist's Way? Her name is escaping me at the moment. The Artist's Way. Anyway, I don't. She used to say write it out physically. I always had the same value in writing the computer. I would start out with just typing pages and pages and pages of subconscious black, and there'd be a lot of cursing, there'd be a lot of all that kind of stuff, but it was just like getting stuff out of my subconscious. Then I would hit a really sweet spot with, now I'm in a creative spot, and I wrote a lot of scripts in those days. Besides the Sin Eater, I wrote I wrote a lot of scripts I never made.
That's right.
But that was part of my morning process, and it is difficult for me in my life now to find that golden space of writing time. But I have to finish the script for All Star. I have to find some precious space.
Well, I find too what helps me, and I don't do it nearly enough, is really writing down stuff. Mm-hmm. If I've got a lot of stuff on my mind, if I sit down and write down, even if it ends up being 2 pages of stuff I need to do, right? Or stuff I want to do. Or
I'm a notorious list maker.
Like stuff, needs, wants, ideas, whatever. I write it all down, and then it's like, now I've got the mental bandwidth to actually, because it's like once it's on paper,
get it out of your head.
You don't have to remember it.
There's a book, or I actually have the audio of it somewhere that I recommend to you. David Allen's Getting Things Done, and it's just organizational systems. We used to have an associate. I've met him a few times. We used to have an association in California, and then he wrote a business book that took off really well. But really, really good guy. David Allen's Getting Things Done. It's just that whole idea of getting all that crap out of your head, but having an effective organizational system so that it's going in a place where it's going to be acted on or filed in the right place, and so that you constantly get stuff like that out of your head. And I think it's it is only since he wrote that book 2003, 4, 5, right in there. I mean, those problems are only a millionfold now with the number of emails and of input. Everything's available all the time.
And I've tried, to
discern between them is crazy.
I've seen people who say, you can use Evernote and set up you set up Evernote files, and that way you can sync stuff and put stuff in folders. And I've tried different apps to put this stuff in the app, and then and you can set reminders and stuff. It's hard because I've not found the one thing that I can really stick with it. This thing works for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and that's I like the basics of David Allen's and how simple it is, because you can apply it to whatever you do. And anytime I've followed through with his systems, they've been really good.
Yeah.
What did I do this week to make my life better? I'm sorry. What did I do this week not related to technology was we've had a lot of snow.
Yeah.
Or not like quantity wise, but consistently every couple of days it snows. I love taking the dogs for a walk in the snow.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
They're so much fun. And I love getting out and walking in the snow, and the dogs are a really good excuse. Anyway, I don't know why I had to say that.
No, that's nice. Yeah,
but we were on a talking point there, and I said, "Let me interrupt to give you my answer to this question." Back to the flow of the conversation.
I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to the weather breaking, because one thing I did was, I know I need to get more active, so I did the other day. It was really nice, and Ethan and I went on a walk where I just walked walked from my house to kind of the top of the hill. Mm-hmm. Crossed the street, came back down the hill, walked past the house on the other side of the road, up kind of the other hill, and then made a loop, and so it's probably, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, right, in total, 5 blocks in total on each side of the road, so 10 blocks total around the loop. But you can see it. I can stand on my front porch and see the top of the hill to my right. I can see the top of the hill to my left. And did it, and I figured out that's 1,500 steps. I'm like, oh, okay. So with my Fitbit, if I do that, it takes 10 minutes maybe to do that loop. So if I do that a couple times a day, I can get my steps in. And it's not let's go for a walk, because we'll do that in the summertime. Let's walk downtown. Let's go walk on the canal. But it ends up being this oh man, that's going to be a lot of walking and, whatever. But this is no, you just have to do the lap, go to the top of the hill, back down around, so yeah. And I got to start taking the dogs with me too, because man, they drive me crazy.
Yeah, there's nothing, and they have fun, but there's nothing like walking dogs.
Yeah, I agree.
Lemon's young; she loves the snow. What did you do this week to make your life better?
We had a nice. It was my mom's birthday and mom and dad's anniversary. Mom's birthday was last Thursday, and their anniversary was yesterday. So we had a party at our house Sunday, and it was really nice because we had some friends over, had mom and dad over. Our oldest daughter came with her friend, and we just had a really nice time. We sat around, had a nice dinner, talked. It was actually very interesting because we had a political discussion. I won't get into the details of the political discussion.
No, please. Let's talk about our politics.
But I will say we had a everyone was very much on the same page politically, and we had this big discussion before we ate, and we were sort of eating finger food and drinking wine or whatever, and then we sat down to eat, and my dad said, he actually got kind of teary and said, I just want to say how grateful I am that we had that conversation, because it took me back to 1969 when I was with, this political group, and we had this same kind of conversation about politics and the direction of the country and whatever. And then the next day we marched on Washington, and we did this big march, and he said it just took him back to that moment again, which was really interesting. It was a nice, I don't know that it wasn't a super happy conversation, but it was a nice conversation. And then we didn't talk about politics the rest of the night, so we kind of got it out of our system, and it was nice.
Well, I think that's, and I won't dwell on this, but I do think that's one thing that's really heartening to me, is that everything that has happened, whether you agree with it, disagree with it, or whatever, everyone's taking the positive out of it. Is everybody's taking a very active stance, an active and participatory stance in politics, and nobody's phoning it in. People are actually phoning their politicians, expressing their opinions.
Right.
These things matter, and these things work no matter where you stand on the political spectrum. We do not live in a dictatorship. We're not going to live in a dictatorship.
No,
no matter what, that is not going to come of this country. There are too many people active and involved right now, and so speak up and use your voice. These people work for us. We are not under someone's rule.
Right.
These people are public servants, and they need to be treated as such, and not as
well. And the most effective thing that you can do is, if you can, if politically people feel that you can be ignored or minimized, then they will do that because there's little consequence to do that. Mm-hmm. So they have to be more afraid of you. Mm-hmm. And they have to be more afraid of doing the wrong thing than they are excited about doing the right thing.
Exactly.
Because, otherwise they just go, well, I'm just going to do this. Yeah. And no one complained about it. Well, no, you have to actually step up and say, no, or yes, or whatever.
No matter your position, speak up, be active.
Yeah.
So,
I
agree. I was excited. As I said a few times, I spent the weekend doing business plans and finished bringing some completion to some things that are going to lead to making more movies.
Awesome.
I love teaching people about movies. I love teaching people about improvisation. But the bottom line is I direct films, and I'm going to be doing more of that in addition to all the teaching stuff. So, last and certainly not least, who gets the Kindness Award this week?
Oh, man. I always struggle. This is the part that I struggle with the most. I don't even necessarily know why, because it's not that I'm surrounded by people who are unkind. Mm-hmm. It just ends up being I don't see anybody during the week. It's really sad.
Well, you know what? I'm going to share something, and I'm not sharing this for my own glorification, but I had a really neat experience this week. I committed a random act of kindness.
Oh, good.
I committed a random act of kindness, and I hesitate to say what it was because then it takes away the joy that I have in it.
Yeah.
I mean, even mentioning that I did it takes away a little bit of the joy, but I want to share that as a possibility. A random act of kindness is simply you do something kind for kindness' sake, and the rule is that I'm breaking right now is you don't tell anybody about it. Now, I'm not going to tell you specifically what it was because it's a little thing. Really, you shovel someone's walk anonymously. You leave a $10 bill in the tip jar or something. I mean, it's something very random, very personal. You get to keep it for yourself, knowing that you have shared kindness. One thing that used to happen at Chick-fil-A all the time was I always loved that going through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A and paying for the car and back of it.
Right.
That was a cool one, and I've had that happen to me sometimes. Go, oh my God, that's so awesome. Yeah, I'll pay for the car behind me. How much was there?
Much was there?
Was it more than mine was going to be?
I was just going to get a coffee. So
I was going to get
9 chicken sandwiches and fries and drinks. Yeah.
That was a really cool one. We've already given Matt Hunt his shout out, but there's a friend of mine from high school, Mary Ryan Robinson, who I've known since high school. I've just become reacquainted with her on Facebook. But she has listened to our podcast several times and has acknowledged her listening to the podcast and publicly thanked me for listening to the podcast.
Oh, very nice.
And I said, oh my God, we've got to give Mary a shout out on the podcast because, I mean, we may only have 2 or 3 listeners at this point, but that's okay.
Mary is literally 50% of our listenership.
50% of, we just did a shout out to 50% of our listening audience.
That's how committed we are to Mary. Well, I will say, I because that kind of reminded me, I'd sent a message to a girl that I went to high school with, named Elizabeth, who I ended up with 2 Facebook accounts, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got a Facebook account from when I lived in Virginia. Mm-hmm. I moved here, didn't want to subject my Virginia friends to the insanity here at the time, what I was going through. So I just created a new account just for people that I knew here. So I bounced back and forth between the two, and I'm really weaning myself off Facebook entirely. Yeah. But I saw a lot of her posts, and she was taking a lot of heat. I mean, she's always been very consistent. She's very proudly Christian. She believes in her, she believes what she believes, and she stands up for what she believes in, even when it's unpopular. And I think her take on Christianity is much like mine, which is like you, as much as possible, reject power. You walk away from power and you focus on people who are needy, and the least of these are brethren. And
yes,
and so I saw that she was taking some heat, and but she was also very almost defiantly saying, look, this is who I am, and if you don't like it, or if you can't handle it, or you're this upset about it, you should unfriend me.
I really respect that.
Yeah.
I really respect that consistent.
I sent her a message, and I was like, "Hey, haven't talked to you in 20 years. Really, see your stuff on Facebook. I just want to say, keep your head up and keep doing what you're doing." And and she wrote back, and she was very gracious and said, thank you so much, and so it was. I don't know that it was. I don't know that she. I think she would get the kindness award. I would probably give it to her because she. It's not a mean spirited. It's not if you disagree with me, you're stupid. It's look. I will not compromise what I believe to make you feel comfortable. I'm not going to tolerate. People. I'm not going to tolerate something that I find morally or ethically wrong, just because we're friends on Facebook.
Right.
Which I felt. People who show that kind of integrity, I really admire.
Yeah, there's kindness in that, I think. I mean, and I didn't make that clear about Mary. I would give her my kindness award simply because she makes me laugh all the time. She posts a lot of really outrageous things on Facebook. Yeah. Okay, often offensive, but but mostly really funny.
Yeah.
And dirty jokes and weed jokes and stuff like that. That's good. She's been banned a few times.
Nice.
She got Facebook banned 2 or 3 times.
Very good.
And I love that. It makes me laugh out loud, and there is so much to me. Laughter is kindness. Yeah. That as long as I don't like mean laughter, and it's nothing like that. It's always a good genuine laugh. Is providing a good genuine laugh to someone is one of the most kind things that you can do. Sure. So and for that reason, she's definitely included in my kindness award this week.
That's awesome.
Well, I think that once again, I actually have to skedaddle. I have to get in the shower. I have a lunch date with my lawyer.
It sounds so official.
I know. I just like saying that I'm having lunch with my lawyer.
Yes.
But yes, she's a dear friend of mine, Tara, and we are beginning discussions about how in the heck we're going to put together this all-star project.
Very good.
I don't know a lot about that, but I do know you need to have a lawyer involved.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have to go home I have to go clean house actually when I get home because I've really put it off. So I've got a bunch of stuff I got to get caught up on.
You should get a lawyer.
I should get a lawyer just so I can lunch with my lawyer and not have to clean house. That would be good too.
All right. So thanks again for tuning in. Once again, I'm JW.
I'm Karl.
And this has been the Movie Brewdio podcast with JW and Karl, episode number 7. Lucky number 7. Lucky number 7. As we're so fond of saying at the conclusion of our podcast, that's it, Fort Pitt. See you next week, kids.